That was perfect. Unbelievable. Let's do it again at 11. That was incredible. So, Artia, had you even heard that song before? Be honest. You had at least heard it before, yeah. Okay, Aaron, you'd heard it before? No? Yes or no? You heard it, okay, just want to make sure. Yeah, I love the I love the line, I can't stand this indecision, married to a lack of vision. Everybody wants to rule the world. So we're in this season in our country where a couple of people are trying to rule the world. Maybe, two or three. We don't even know who it's gonna be. It's just so exciting, right? Let me tell you the most difficult person to rule. Every morning I get up and I see him in the mirror. He is the most difficult person for me to rule. My appetites and my desires and my insecurities, and your appetites and your desires and your insecurities. And if we would figure out how to rule our own little personal worlds, the whole world would be a better place. And if this is your first time with us, that's what we believe as a church. We believe that following Jesus will make your life better and ultimately would make the world better. So regardless of what happens politically, we have hope and we're not giving up, and great things are happening. And our country's an amazing country, and it's still the place everybody wants to be. So pray for whoever you're praying for, vote for whoever you want to vote for, but at the end of the day, rule the person in the mirror and invite your Savior to help you do that, and the world will be a better place. Well, thank you. So if it is your first time, our mission, our agenda is very simple. It's to inspire people to do just that. It's to inspire people to follow Jesus. And so wherever you are on your spiritual journey, or maybe you're not even on one, somebody just made you come to church or somebody made you watch with them today, we're happy that you're a part of what we're doing. And for those of you who are joining us from all over the country and all over the world, welcome back as well. Real quick update. For those of you who watch online, this won't be so relevant. In fact, you may not ever want to come, but we're having an air conditioning issue here. So we're in the West Auditorium, and I wanted to give you an update. And the update is, it's going to be a minute because you may already know this, they're having to rebuild these units because they're so old. And then we got here this morning because of all the rain. Oh, they moved it. We actually have a roof leak. So our building is pretty much falling apart. Now, here's why that's good news. It's good news and bad news. The good news is it makes me grateful for those of you who are generous to our church so that we can fix some of these things. And what would really be cool, that would be a good, what would really be cool? Yeah, it would really be cool. The band doesn't listen to me, but they do read all my email every week when it comes. Anyway, what would really be cool, there's some of you, and because I hear this all the time, so if this isn't you, don't worry about it, but every once in a while I hear about, Andy, the reason I don't give the North Point Community Church financially is your church, like it's my church, your church doesn't need my money. So I have some great news. We need your money, okay? We gotta buy 4 air conditioning units that weren't in the budget to the tune of about $300,000. So if you've been holding back like you don't need our money, we need it. So this is your opportunity, and I know that you love to give to things like air conditioning units. I mean, there are children starving in different parts of the world, but air conditioning units, I know that's kind of your passion. So anyway, this would be a great opportunity to kind of break through that wall and donate to the North Point Community Church. We're gonna get it fixed one way or the other, but anyway, we have some work to do. So thank you for your patience in meeting in the West, and those of you over in the East Auditorium, a little humid in there. I don't think it's gonna rain on you exactly. It's not that humid, but thanks for sitting over there. We appreciate it so much. The one thing you need to know today for sure is we're gonna be back this afternoon at 5 o'clock for our night of worship and communion. We're gonna be joined by our high school students. It's always so much fun. I know you've already been to church once, or maybe you're sitting at home today. 5 o'clock, be back in this room. It's gonna be great. We're gonna baptize some students. We had about right at 3,000 high school students that went to Daytona. They got back Friday. I know, isn't that great? Not 3,000 from this church, from our network churches in the Atlanta area, but still, it's a lot of students and a lot of adults. So we're gonna celebrate that tonight. It's gonna be a lot of fun. The best way to keep up with what's going on around here, as you know, hopefully, is the top 3 website, northpoint.org/top 3. We update it every single week. Number 2 on the top 3 is in 4 weeks or 4 Sundays, we're gonna do our group launch, where we open up a lot of small groups for people who aren't in small groups. Some of you are gonna get in group for the very first time. So we're in the season of recruiting recruiting some leaders. We need about 100 adult leaders to lead some men's groups, women's groups, or couples groups. So if you go to northpoint.org/top 3, even if you're watching online and aren't here with us today, check that out. If you are in a small group and you have sat through a group from time to time and thought to yourself, hey, I think I could do a better job leading than our leader, this is your opportunity, okay? So we would love to talk to you, at least get some information, tell you what is involved in being a group leader, help you to develop or form a group. So just give us an opportunity to give you that information, and we'll see if you're ready for that. And again, leading a small group isn't about teaching anything, it's about facilitating a conversation. And most of you are great at that, so we would love to get you involved with that. Today, we are in part 3 of our series, Games We Play. Sam Massad's bringing the message live from Woodstock City Church. He's the pastor there, so it's gonna be great. We're gonna sing a little bit with Jared, Kara, Aaron, and Artia. You guys, come on up. But as they're coming up, I just wanna say one thing about this opening song, because I love this song. And the opening line says this, and I think at some point in all of our lives, we can relate to this opening line. I believe, but help my unbelief. I believe, but help my unbelief. And if you're like me and you were raised in church or you were raised in a religious environment where you always believed, and then something happened and it kind of cut the legs out from underneath your belief and you're struggling to maintain your faith, this song is for you. So if you would stand, say hey to somebody, we will sing together.
In the Father's hands and leave the rest in the Father's hands. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. I will rest in the Father's hands, and I'll leave the rest. In the Father's hands. I will rest in you. Father's hands. I give you all my trust. Father's hands. So I throw all my cares before you, my doubts and fears. down the gates of hell with just one breath. No other king will reign until the end. Jesus, Jesus, no one is like you, my Jesus. No one beside you. Of this I am convinced. No greater love exists than my Jesus. No one is like you, my Jesus. No one beside you. Of this I am convinced. No greater love exists. Forever on my heart is Forever on my heart is No other Light of the world, Lamb that was slain, Lion who rose, mighty to save. The fullness of God won't be kept in a grave. Darkness, your hour is over. Behold the love, His light plea. Behold the grace of Calvary, that rugged cross, soon to be the emblem of a risen King. Behold the King, Light of the world, Lamb that was slain, Lion who rose, mighty to save. The fullness of God won't be kept in a grave. Darkness, your hour is over. There's no other name, no name but Jesus. No enemy can hold you down, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. One head gets to wear that crown, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. No enemy can hold you down, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. One head gets to wear that crown, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. No enemy can hold you down, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. One head gets to wear that crown, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now. No enemy can hold you down, 'cause there's nobody in the grave now.
guys sound incredible. Thank you so much for singing. You can have a seat exactly where you are.
Hey everybody, Andrew here with Games We Play, where we have real people compete against real pros. Today is gymnastics, but we're still waiting on our gymnast. I don't know when he was supposed to be here. I guess we'll just wait. These gymnasts are so flippant. All right, I'm here with David Long, regional Southeast champion for gymnastics and also national champion for floor. Do you think you're gonna be able to beat our pedestrians out here this afternoon?
I think so.
What's your favorite movie?
Can we wrap this up?
I've not seen that. Is that Steve Martin? We got some competitors. What is y'all's gymnastics experience level?
Toddler level?
I have no experience.
Ours just kind of like under the rug.
We might discover some prodigies, is what it sounds like. This David's getting nervous over there. Well, we have a very expensive award for you.
Thank you so much.
You think you can beat our champion David in a little bit of gymnastics?
Yes, I think I can.
Well, we have some very serious professional judges here. We are gonna do aerial, cartwheel, and handstand. Okay, he's showing off. See if they dock you for cockiness. It's crazy they call it aerial because like a mermaid could never do that. David, let's get your aerial.
Men's gymnastics doesn't really do aerials.
Men's gymnastics don't do that. That's why they don't call you Ninesley, right? Hensley. Sometimes people don't get my jokes and then get sad. That was very good, very professional. Thanks for being here.
Yes, sir.
And we have a new pro for next year, if you're available and within our budget. This is gonna be about a 45-minute interview. Is that cool?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what you think about when you, when you think about games, why you do or don't play games. But for me, I play games for one reason, and it's to win. That's it. The only reason I play a game is to win a game. I don't see a purpose in playing a game if you can't win the game. I am definitely in the over-competitive category. It doesn't matter the game. It doesn't matter the cost. It doesn't matter who's in my way. I'm going to try to win. And you might say, you're a pastor. And I would say, I don't care. We take our interns on a yearly retreat where we do development and leadership development and community building and all that important stuff. But we always play games. And so this was a couple years ago. We were playing a game with our interns, and it's a game where there are two teams, but you don't know each other's identity. And if your identity gets found out, then you're more than likely going to lose the game. And there's various moments throughout the game where somebody could potentially identify your identity. And so we're early on in the game, and one of the interns figured out who I really was. And it threatened to derail the whole game for my team. And so I had two options. Either I just laugh it off and just take it and oh my gosh, good job, you won, that's so fun. Games are so fun. Or I turn the table against her and make them think she's lying. And because I'm a pastor, I made everyone think she was lying. That's exactly what I did. I mean, y'all, I went all in. I turned the whole table around her, made up this whole story. She was right, I was wrong. I called her a liar to her face. We won, and I would do it again. So, games we play. We got all sorts of games that we play, but this series isn't about those games, which we're in a series called Games We Play. This series is about the games that we play in an arena of life that we should never play games in, and that arena of life is in relationships. That when it comes to our relationships, we should never play any kind of game, because again, the nature of a game, there's a winner, and there's a loser. And we set this up in week one of our series that a game that requires a loser is a game nobody wins. In the context of our relationships, if somebody wins and somebody loses, then everybody loses. In fact, you know this, right? Think about the last time you had an argument or you won the argument in your marriage or whatever. The person that wins, you actually end up losing the most, because when you win, not only does it hurt the relationship, but come on, you end up having to apologize. You probably ended up regretting. There was some damage control that was required. in the realm of relationships, when we play games, the relationship suffers. It's why for some of you, either you have in the past when you did, or maybe you are now, you ended a dating relationship, and one of the reasons was, hey, I'm not in this to play a game. When we play games relationally, regardless of the context of the relationship suffers. And it is impossible for a relationship to thrive when we're playing games. And so throughout the course of the series, we're talking about the different games that we tend to play. In today's game, buckle up, because it's convicting. This game is so toxic. This is a game that everybody plays, no matter what you do or don't believe about faith. We all play this game. And at the end, if you stick around, I'm going to tell you about a time that I played this game to its toxic and detrimental end. So get your popcorn ready. I'm going to get really honest, okay? Here's the game that we're going to talk about today, the comparison game. The comparison game. It is a game that is all too familiar to humans. In fact, this game comes so naturally to us that it's almost like to be human is to compare. Funny thing about this game, it's a game you could play all by yourself. In fact, when you play this game with other people, most of the time they have no idea that you guys are playing a game, okay? But it's so easy. And it starts as kids, right? I've got young kids. My oldest is about to turn 6. But even like around 3 or 4 years old, they started noticing kids that can draw better than them, or they can do this on the playground. Daddy, when will I be able to? How come I can't? Oh, when you get older, this, that, and the other. But for me, like it got real toxic when I got into middle school. That's when you start getting the real detrimental effects of this game. When I was in middle school, I started noticing what people are wearing, how they're looking, what people are driving, what shoes people are walking into school with. Abercrombie and Fitch was the apparel of the day in middle school. And my parents, bless their hearts, they were immigrants. They had no idea what Abercrombie and Fitch was, okay? And so I had a couple of shirts that I would get at Christmas or whatever, and I cycled those shirts every single week, okay? That's the first time I started putting gel in my hair, because people like gelled their hair, and I had a little cowlick, and it never looked good. I would pray that God would fix my cowlick. That's how bad it was. Frosted tips were a thing in your hair. Do you remember this? This is when you'd flick the hair up, and then just the tips would be blonde. Thank God I never learned how to do that, okay? Never did that. The shoes that people walked in with, like New Balance was a thing, like really, really big back then, and I just wanted some New Balance shoes. But we all played this game growing up. You all played the comparison game in middle school. And in fact, if you were like me, most of my insecurity in middle school stemmed from the comparison game that I played. But here's what you know, is that we never stopped playing the game. The stakes just got higher. That into our adulthood, you continue to play this game. Into starting a family, you still play this game. Now that you're married, you have kids, you still play this game. In fact, in our world today with social media is a tool of social comparison unlike anything the world has ever seen. Social media has made comparison a hobby. It's impossible to scroll through your timeline on Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media you're on these days and not compare. In fact, research tells us that about 10% of our thoughts in a day are some kind of thought of comparison. That's 1 in every 10 of your thoughts, and you have a lot of thoughts are some kind of thought of comparison. We're constantly comparing. Or if you're in school, you're comparing GPA and the acceptance, the college acceptance of one person of another. You're comparing your marriage to somebody else's marriage. Their marriage is better. Or heck, they have a marriage. I mean, you're comparing, right? You're comparing your jobs and your salaries and the cars and the houses, the lifestyles and the vacations. It is endless. And the thing about the comparison game, there's actually 2 ways to play. There's 2 game modes, if you will, okay? You can get real creative with the comparison game. There's 2 ways that we tend to compare. And it's what social psychologists call upward comparison and downward comparison. Okay, and they're just what you might think. Upward comparison is when we compare ourselves to somebody that we would say, or society would say, is better than us, or has more than us, is richer than us, whatever. Downward comparison is when we compare ourselves to somebody that we would say we are better than. And we do both of them. And both of these types of comparison, they have an inevitable outcome. You can't escape it, and neither outcome is healthy for you, your heart, your mind, your faith, and it is certainly not helpful or healthy for the relationship. Outcome, I want to talk about the outcome of the downward comparison game first. When you and I play the downward comparison game, here's where it will inevitably lead to. You'll believe you're superior to others. Like no matter how you slice this, if you compare yourself to somebody that you would deem has less stuff than you, maybe drives a not as nice car than you, like whatever the criteria is, you feel like you're more gifted than they are, you're further along in life, that they should be further along, inevitably, no matter what happens, you and I will begin to develop a superiority complex. And suddenly it's not just that we do have a bigger house or that we do have a more expensive car or we are in a different place in life. Suddenly, it's our value as humans is greater than their value as humans. That somehow, in some way, this superiority complex starts to make us believe we're more important than we really are. It inflates our value of self while devaluing the self and the esteem of another person. Judgment ensues. Looking down on others ensues. And here's the interesting thing about the downward comparison game. Whenever we play downward comparison, you don't do this on accident. The downward comparison game is something that we tend to do intentionally. It's something we intentionally do to make ourselves feel better. In fact, not always, but generally. Not always, but generally, we don't start with the downward comparison game. Usually, we only play downward comparison because we started playing upward comparison first. In other words, we play downward comparison to counteract the insecurity that we felt because we played the upward comparison game with somebody else first. And that's why my energy today is going to be spent more on upward comparison. Because usually we play downward comparison because we started there first. And here's the outcome of upward comparison. Inevitably, you and I, we will grow envious of the person we are comparing ourselves to. Categorically, it will lead to envy. Envy says, I want what they have. I want that job. I want that salary. I want that marriage. I want him. I want her. I want what they're good at. It's this longing and this desire. And come on, you're human. So you felt this. It's that longing and that desire to want that thing that somebody else has. It's a thing, it's a title, it's a relationship, it's an amount, it's a quality. They have it, we want it. And envy, it starts so subtle, but it quickly becomes an enemy that will wreak havoc on your soul and it will wreak havoc on your relationships. That envy, it starts so subtle, but it will slowly begin to corrode and eat its way through any contentment and joy and peace and love that you might have in your life, in your heart, and in your relationships. Envy, it is a relational toxin unlike any other. In fact, Solomon, we're going to look at a couple passages of wisdom literature today out of the scriptures. And a quick side note on wisdom literature. I love wisdom literature because even if you're not a person of faith, like you're not sure what you do or don't believe about the Bible, that's okay. We're glad you're here. Here's the great thing about the wisdom literature. It's in the Bible, and wisdom is just about how life is lived best. And so even if you're not a person of faith, there is something to be gleaned from Proverbs and Ecclesiastes today, which are two of the books of literature, wisdom literature we'll be looking at today. And first, Proverbs 14:30, as it relates to the toxicity of envy. Solomon writes, a heart at peace, a heart that experiences contentment, a heart that is not living in a world of I've got to have what everybody else has. A heart at peace, it gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. Such vivid imagery. And you know this, rot is a sign something is dead or dying. It's a sign that something is decaying and not as it should be. And a life wrought with envy, a heart gripped with envy is decaying, dying, not fully alive. And when envy has a grip, no relationship will thrive. It rots the bones. And you might not have ever put language around this, but you've experienced this. Because whenever envy has a grip, here's what that rot might look like, okay? For you and for me. Whenever we grow envious, whenever we let envy have a foothold, it manifests itself this way. It looks like anger and bitterness towards the person that we're envious of. Like, think about this. We will grow bitter and angry towards somebody that has done nothing to us. They just have what we want. They succeed in a way that we thought we would succeed. They have the life that we think that we deserve. And we will make an enemy of somebody that didn't do anything to deserve it. In fact, this is so toxic. We'll make an enemy of some of the people that are closest to us. It could be a family member. It could be a best friend. Envy rots the bones. It might manifest itself this way, that when we give enemy kind of a foothold, a grip over our hearts, you'll begin to question your self-worth. Like, in fact, for some of us, it's not that we hate the people that we compared ourselves to, but if you're just being totally honest, you kind of start to hate yourself. You start to hate your life. You start to doubt yourself. You start to question your value, and you start to question your identity because you're not where they are or have what they have, and you just wonder, well, what's wrong with me? It might look like this, that when envy rots the bones, it looks like being overly critical. This is us all the time. Like, whenever we're envious of somebody, we are less likely to celebrate them, to love them well. In fact, come on, you peer over at their car. This is one thing. We never write a generous narrative whenever we are envious of others. We're critical. You peer over at the car that they just got, and you think, well, probably went into debt for that one. Jeez, wouldn't have done that if I were them. You walk into their new house. Well, I mean, yeah, I could afford this too if I didn't tithe. You know, y'all laugh, but it's nervous laughter because you get it. Insert your example. We don't write a generous narrative when we're being envious of another. We assume the worst. Envy rots the bones. You know what else it might look like? That whenever we're envious of another person, we lack gratitude. We lack gratitude. It literally snatches the joy. It snatches the contentment. It snatches the peace. And we overlook the good right in front of us because we're so focused on what is in front of somebody else and we want it. And ultimately, for the Jesus follower in the room, envy will lead to a lack of trust in God. Just will, because you've all felt this. Whenever you've grown envious of somebody, you've wanted something, you've wanted who they are, what they have, their success, you've probably had moments where you've asked God, have you forgotten about me? What about when is it my turn? I've put in the hard work. I deserved this. What about me? And there will come a point where your envy will start to undermine your faith. And I'm just telling you, there's going to come a point where envy and trust in God become completely incompatible with the other. And it starts so subtle. Just like any rod, it just starts so subtle, but if you don't pay attention, it gets so bad so quickly. The toxicity of envy, it will harden your heart. It will villainize your closest friends. It will infiltrate and suffocate any and every relationship. It will undermine your faith, and it will destroy your self-worth. So how do we stop? I have no idea. I'm just kidding. I got a couple ideas. I want to look at Ecclesiastes, which is, I mentioned earlier, another book of wisdom. Solomon wrote a good bit of Proverbs. And in Ecclesiastes, he talks about envy. He talks about more so how pointless it is when we are fueled by it. And then the way he ends this passage, it is so powerful. If we could just get this last verse, whenever we get to it, I want to go ahead and tee it up. If we could just get that last verse, it would change everything. So let's jump in, Ecclesiastes chapter 4, and glean from this wisdom, okay? Solomon writes this, and I noticed, I observed, that all toil and all achievement spring from one person's envy of another. He's making an observation into our human nature. That so much of our drive for achievement, our pursuit of achievement, our earning, our desire for things or to be somebody, right? All toil and all achievement, he said, I've noticed, it springs from, it is born out of, it is a product of our envy of another person. That's so often what is the motivating driver of all that we do and all that we try and achieve is that we're envious of another. He uses this word toil. See, two words here, toil and achievement. The word toil throughout Ecclesiastes, it describes all human endeavor in our broken world. And it's a different kind of emotion than achievement. It's emotionally heavier. The word toil throughout Ecclesiastes, it's emotionally heavier than achievement. Toil carries with it the sense of exertion, overexertion, frustration, a struggle, incessantly working and trying to achieve, seemingly making little progress. You're just toiling and tinkering, and you're trying so hard, but you're actually not making much progress. And so he says, hey, so much of our toiling to try to be and achieve and do and earn is rooted in our envy of another. And he just makes this observation. This too is meaningless. A chasing after the wind. You can't catch the wind. Chasing the wind is silly. Chasing the wind is pointless. It is endless. You're never going to get to the finish line. You're never going to catch it, and that's his point. That this rat race, whenever envy fuels our pursuit of more and bigger and better and trying to be like, whenever comparison motivates that, it's an endless pursuit. It's a pointless pursuit because there's no finish line. You're never going to get enough, earn enough, be like them enough to ever be satisfied and happy and content. When envy and comparison fuels our drive for bigger and better and more and richer and smarter and whatever it is that you want to fill in the blank with, you're never going to get, and I'm never going to get what we're after. It's a rat race that you'll never win, that I'll never win. Do you know why? Because there's always going to be somebody better than you. There's always going to be somebody with more than me. There's always going to be somebody smarter. There's always going to be somebody that has something else that I want. Here's Solomon's point. You can spend all your energy trying to get to where they are, be who they are, try to achieve what they have, try to live the life that they're living. And then what happens? Let's say you get there. There's going to be somebody else that you're going to continue to compare yourself to if envy is what is driving it all. Never ends. He writes this in verse 5. He says, now fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. Now this is important. A fool that folds their hand, the idea is somebody that doesn't work, that doesn't achieve, they ruin themselves. So Solomon's point, his point isn't that anti-achievement or anti-ambition. That's not the point. You should work hard. You should work hard to earn a living. There's nothing wrong with progress and wanting to be better and setting goals. Solomon's point is whenever that is rooted in envy of another, it leads to toxic and detrimental ends. I want to be better, but you know what I should do? I should compare myself to myself. Be better than I was last year. Be better today than yesterday. But when it's rooted in my comparison and envy of another, it's detrimental to you, to your soul, and to those around you. So that specifically, the motivation is what he is addressing. And then he lands on this unbelievably insightful and powerful line. Y'all, this is the message right here. If we could just get this, believe this, and just literally store this and write it into our hearts and our minds, this is how we can begin to stop playing the comparison game. This is the message right here. You ready? This is so brilliant. This is so brilliant, so insightful. Have I talked it up enough yet? Okay, you ready? Here we go. Tune back in if you zoned out. This is really important. Verse 5 or 6. He says, better, more fruitful, healthier, better is one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. Better is one handful with tranquility peace, joy, contentment, satisfaction, happiness, gratitude. I would argue as the result, healthy relationships. Better is one handful with tranquility than two handfuls where you're toiling and chasing after the wind and not experiencing tranquility. Here's his point. Every single one of us have one handful. But if out of envy and comparison we seek a second handful, it's going to cost us something. We've got to get this. And I'm telling you, in this moment, you're going to be tempted to play the comparison game. But you need to hear me. Every single one of y'all has a handful. I don't care what someone else's handful looks like. You've got a handful. Like, it's what you have. It's who you are. It's where you are. It's your wiring. It's your gifting. It's your family. It's your house. It's your car. It's your job. It's your salary. It's your hourly rate. It's your hourly wage. It's your life. You have a handful. And right now in this moment, you're tempted to compare that handful. But just for a moment, you have a handful. And Solomon is saying, it is better to live with one handful in tranquility, contentment, and peace than seeking after that second handful and letting the life-sucking and soul-draining, toiling and working that will rob you of life and healthy relationships that will lead to two handfuls. You've got one, but the second handful, the striving for it when the motivation's wrong, it's going to cost you and it's going to cost me. So here's a question that I can't help but ask when I read this text. What is that second handful going to cost you? You've got one. You do. It's better than you think. Just hold on to that for a second. What is that second handful going to cost you? Come on. For some of you, you're going to work yourself to death for that second handful. For some of you, you're going to spend yourself into debt for that second handful. For some of you, you're going to miss out on time with your kids that you'll never get back in pursuit of that second handful. We would be so quick to overlook how God has wired us and uniquely placed us where we are because we're so focused on that second handful. We'll miss the beauty of what is right in front of us because we're chasing that second handful. Your mental health will suffer because of that second handful. Your trust and my trust in our Heavenly Father will slowly erode as we pursue that second handful motivated by envy and comparison. You and I will slowly become people that we're not proud of and people that we can't even recognize in pursuit of that second handful motivated by envy and comparison. We'll cultivate a spirit of judgment and hate rather than love and empathy as we pursue that second handful. I'm just telling you, your heart and mind will grow cold and bitter in pursuit of that second handful motivated by envy and comparison. Come on. What is that second handful going to cost you? If you're just being honest right now in this moment, what is it already costing you? What has it cost you? You don't need me to tell you. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And I think deep down you know it's not worth it. The more I process, I want to be a one-hand kind of person. Not that I'm not going to pursue more and I want to grow and this, that, and the other. It's not about the second handful. It's about what's motivated in the second handful, and that changes everything. I want to be a one-handful kind of person. I want to be a one-handful kind of Jesus follower. Because I think on the other side, and this is what Solomon's getting at, there is so much life and freedom on the other side of that thinking, that mentality, and on the other side of that, life and those relationships. So, how do we do that? I think it starts by being honest. Come on, the toiling, it's exhausting. The rat race, the comparing, it's depressing. It's never ending. It's soul sucking. It's relationship killing, and it is faith undermining. So how do we start? How do we start being one handful kinds of people? I think right now it starts with some honesty. And I'm going to ask you a few questions. And maybe you need to write them down or type them out on your notes app and process them over the next week. But I just want you to be honest with yourself. Who are you trying to keep up with? Really? Be honest. Is it a sibling? Is it a friend? Is it somebody that you've never met, but you just see what they drive every time you go into the carpool line? Come on, and you already don't like them. I mean, come on, who are you trying to keep up with? Is there someone you're trying to keep up with? Second question, what is motivating that second handful? Come on, just be honest with yourself. Is it envy? Is it comparison? Is it trying to achieve because others have? Come on, what is motivating that second handful? Because depending on what motive is motivating it, it does not matter what the cost is. And then lastly, who or what is envy causing you to overlook? Come on, who or what is envy causing you to overlook? We do this all the time. It's unbelievable. Go on. Y'all have done this. I have. You'll be on vacation at the beach. You had the means to rent a beach house. You might have a salary, so you're technically getting paid to go on vacation. You had a great day with your family, with your friends. Then you come back into the beach house. You open up Instagram, and you see someone else's vacation, and it looks better than yours. And guess what? Your vacation is now ruined. And you're on one. Come on. Happens all. What or who is envy causing you to overlook? Write them down. Process them. And now, if you want to be a one handful kind of person, here's how we practice doing that. You ready? I want you to write this down. First, run your race. Don't worry about anybody else's race. Don't worry about who you're trying to keep up with. I know it's easier said than done, but come on, we got to go there. Run your race. I'm not a track and field star. I know, crazy, right? But whenever you watch track and field, if you ever watch a race or whatever, you know a runner's in trouble when they start looking to their left and to their right. They're no longer running their race. They're worried about somebody else's race. And I've seen enough times when you're trying to run and you're looking to your left and your right, you're going to lose your balance and you're not even going to finish your race. You're going to eat it. I want you to run your race where God has you, what he has you doing. Come on, who can only you be? What can only you do? I just wonder how much freedom we might experience forgetting the rat race and trusting our Heavenly Father with where he has us, where we are, and the season that we're in. And don't overlook purpose and opportunity in the race that you are uniquely wired to run. Number 2, fix your focus on Jesus. Fix your focus on Jesus. This is going to sound like the pastoral answer, but this is so important. We talk about this all the time. We're not just called to be believers, we're called to be followers. So come on. If you want to keep up with somebody in your life, if I want to keep up with somebody in my life, let's just try to keep up with Jesus. Let's fix our focus on following our teacher, our rabbi, our Lord, and our King. You want to focus on being anyone different than who you are? Let's focus on being more like Jesus. Let's follow in his way. Let's order our lives and our motivations around the way of Jesus, which is defined by love, elevating others' interests above our own, celebrating others even if we feel like we have nothing to celebrate. Come on, order your life around Jesus. You want to keep up with anybody? Follow him. And let's keep up with him. And what it will produce in your life is the tranquility, the peace, the contentment, the joy. You'll find more purpose as you run your race because you've got the right focus and you're motivated by the right person. And it's not your neighbor, it's not your brother, it's not your sister, it's not him, it's not her, it's not that, it's not what you saw on Instagram. It is your Savior that has called you to follow and says, I've got more for you than anything else you could find or achieve or gain in this world. Fix your focus on Jesus. And then lastly, Choose gratitude. Because you've got so much in this one handful to be grateful for. You've got so much in this handful to thank God for. And so maybe for some of us, it's an exercise of, okay, every day I'm just gonna write down a couple things that I'm grateful for. I've mentioned to you that in my quiet time, I kind of have these 3 questions that I answer. And the third one is, what are 3 things I'm grateful for? The more specific, the better. I try to do that every time. No matter how I'm feeling. Maybe you're on the dinner table, you go around, and one thing that you're grateful for. And maybe you call up a friend every day and say, hey, the one thing that I'm grateful for. You text one thing I'm grateful for. Choose gratitude. And don't overlook the good right in front of you, because you know this. You will regret overlooking it. You will regret missing it. So let's be grateful. Run your race. Fix your focus on Jesus. And come on, let's choose gratitude. That second handful isn't worth it, because it'll crush your soul and it'll crush your relationships. Promise you. I'll tell you a time that I fell into this flat on my face. About 7 or 8 years ago. One of my best friends growing up, since middle school. Like he saw my cowlick, like he's been with me for a minute. We have been through some stuff together. We learned how to follow Jesus together. We decided around the same time to go into ministry together. Each of our families, his parents are second parents, my parents are second parents. We are ride or die. We are as close. He's my brother. And we decided we're going to go into ministry at the same time. We were just tracking along. He's one of the people in my life that knows everything about me and vice versa. We've done life together for years. About 7 or 8 years ago, he was doing student ministry, and I was doing college ministry. And we're kind of we had the same dreams. We both wanted to lead churches and do all. Also, y'all better not judge me for what I'm about to tell you, okay? Don't even right now, all right? I'm going to be honest. 7 or 8 years ago, I can't remember the exact, somewhere around that time, he got an opportunity, and he planted a church, and he became the lead pastor of a church. And I remember when he told me, and I'll never forget, I'm embarrassed to say, here's my best friend. The first thing that came into my mind was not, that's incredible, I'm so happy for you, this is amazing, how can I help you? It was, oh, you got there before me. Oh, hang on, when's my turn? Hey, God, I know you never promised me this, but I thought we were on the same page about what I was going to hopefully do with my life one day. Just being real. And I never told him that. And then I started noticing how toxic it got. Because I'd see him post stuff on Instagram, or he'd be giving me life updates, and I started to grow bitter towards him. I didn't want to hear about it. I wasn't really interested in praying for him about it. I would get annoyed and angry seeing stuff on Instagram. And then I was having the time of my life doing a literal dream job in leading our college ministry. It's still to this day some of the most fun I have ever had in ministry. And I was overlooking the beauty of a season that one day I would wish I could relive, because I was so focused on what he had, his story, his race, and I was letting envy fuel and motivate all of it. Y'all, it was so toxic and so gross. And this is one of my best friends that I love with all of my heart. Stood next to me on my wedding, him and my brother. It's how toxic it is. And finally it got to a point, him and I, after a year or so of this, and I just hid it. I just faked it until I made it. We were hanging out in my office. And been some time since we really caught up, and he was real busy, and I'll be honest with you, this bitterness was kind of like making me want to distance myself a little bit, kind of in self-preservation mode, and we just needed to reconnect, and just talking about how we needed to get back and into rhythm, and we hadn't stayed in touch, and jumping back into accountability, and he's just talking about how much our friendship means to him and all this, and I finally just broke down, and I confessed my envy to him. I told him all of it. I told him how gross it was. I told him what I was thinking, what I was feeling. And I told him, if you've ever felt any distance from me, it's because of this. And then I asked for his forgiveness. Because it wasn't worth it. Nothing is worth the relationship. It was so gross. It was so toxic. And it was ruining something so beautiful in my life. And he was so gracious. And he forgave. He found it silly that I'd be envious of him. We hugged it out. We cried a little bit. And we packed that game up, and I threw it out the window. Proverbs. A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. There is more for you and me on the other side of a one handful kind of life, where we don't let envy and comparison drive our motivation for that second handful. That's going to cost you, undoubtedly, relationally. It will cost you spiritually, and it is not worth it. And I find it interesting to be a one handful kind of person gives you one hand available to take hold of whatever God brings into your life next. So let's be a one handful kind of person. Run your race. Fix your focus on Jesus. Let's choose gratitude, because there's more here than we give credit for. So let's change our perspective, and let's walk in the freedom and the fullness of putting that game aside, quitting the comparison game, and being people that are full of life and life-giving. It'll transform your life. It'll transform your perspective. And I'm just telling you, it'll transform your relationships for the better. Let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, this is so heavy and so honest and so real. Would you just give us the courage to assess this honestly? Would you give us the courage to ask these questions openly? And then would you give us the courage to do something about it? Would you give us the perspective to see our one handful, to trust you along the way, and to choose gratitude, knowing that envy will do nothing but drive us into ruin? It's not worth it. That second handful isn't worth it. Give us the wisdom to see when it's happening, and the wisdom to stop it from happening. We love you. We are so grateful for you. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Whew, wasn't that good? I'll tell him that you clapped. That was the habit of my life from that passage, because I'm the same way. We're all susceptible to this, here's my self-talk around that. I say, Andy, that's chasing the wind. You don't chase the wind. Andy, that's just my self-talk. It's like when I'm looking in the other lane, Andy, that's chasing the wind. Andy, you don't chase the wind. So let's be content with the one. Hey, we're going to be back here tonight at 5 o'clock for some singing and some baptism and some communion. If you can be here, we'd love to have you. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. You're dismissed.
All my words fall short. I've got nothing new. How could I express all my gratitude? I could sing these songs as I often do, but every song must end, and you never do. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again, 'cause all that I have is, yeah, and I know